We appreciate you watching and listening to the Dead Jeff Show. Please like and subscribe and tune in for more videos. Let's look at the NFL defensive coordinator situation for the Cowboys. Let's get a little Cowboy talk in here. We'll go Cowboys talk, then we'll go draft order, and then we'll get into Nick's picks and that way. All right, so the Cowboys defensive coordinator, they put out some invites. They've requested permission. They got denied for the Falcons defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, and which I think would be a great interview. And they can still interview him. We'll see what happens with, with the coaching. They fired Raheem Morris. We'll see what happens with Ulbrich. He's still under contract. Usually they let those guys interview. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
They also put out requests for Jim Leonard, who's the Broncos defensive pass game coordinator. Durante Jones, who's the Vikings defensive pass game coordinator under Flores. He's a Flores guy. And then some guy I've never heard of, Ephraim Bando, which I think is an outside shot, and he's just the safeties coach for the Browns under Jim Schwartz. I think out of these four names, give me Jim Leonard and Ulbrich as my top two, with Durante Jones kind of being a dark horse because I like the Flores mentality. I just don't know if he's ready to be a defensive coordinator, Durante Jones. And Ephraim, I just don't think he has enough experience to get a defensive coordinator job. What do you think about these guys that they've put out the request to interview?
Yeah, so for me, I like Jim Leonard, and I think the thing is, and you've said this before, and I love the way to kind of look at it is, if the Eagles or the Giants were to hire, and like which of these guys that went to a division rival would I be worried about them going to a division rival? And the only one that really jumps out at me from those particular names is Jim Leonard. Now, if Jim Leonard being in Denver, if Vance Joseph ends up getting one of these head coaching jobs, which he absolutely might, apparently he's going to be.
I think he's interviewing with the Titans,
right?
Yeah,
and apparently he may get one or two more. So if he does end up getting one of these head coaching jobs, Vance Joseph, then Jim Leonard becomes the one that they obviously want to stay in Denver and be the DC there. I think it's smart of Dallas to try to get ahead of that and hopefully be able to do something there. So for me, I like Jim Leonard. From what I've read, I didn't know a ton about him. I did a little research on him, and seems like he's a real smart guy. I know Schottenheimer has a great affinity for him. People have kind of connected the dots, and you go back to what Schottenheimer said he was looking for in a defensive coordinator, and it was almost like he was talking specifically about Jim Leonard.
he's a teacher.
Right.
Yeah.
Good hell of a football player, he said. There's some quotes from the back in the day. So yeah, I think for me, it's Jim Leonard would be the one that makes the most sense. I obviously would still prefer one of these ex-head coaches as the potential, whether it's Brian Flores, whether it's Raheem Morris. Like, I would prefer to go that route just because I think that's what this team kind of requires, is someone that's got that kind of pedigree. But Jim Leonard, from the ones that we've actually interviewed, would be my choice.
Yeah, and I think that's the question, right? Is who's hiring this guy? Is it Jerry? Is it Schottenheimer? Is it are they both doing it? I think that I don't know that they can pay some of these big names.
Right.
That's the problem, right? That's probably what they're looking at. Maybe they shouldn't be because they're worth $13 billion or whatever it was. So let's use some of that to get a great defensive coordinator in here. I think that if you look, Jerry likes familiarity. Well, Schottenheimer is familiar with Jim Leonard, like you said. Unless, Durante Jones comes in here and really impresses him, and he has that Brian Flores type aggressiveness with the way he calls games, apparently. I don't know that for a fact. I just read that. I'm a little worried that the Commanders fired Joe Witt, and I don't, that's a familiar name for Cowboys people around here. So I'm really not interested in Joe Witt. But I think out of these names, I would agree Jim Leonard is the guy, with Durante Jones being intriguing. But if you're not going to hire Flores or Morris or Schwartz or any of these big name guys, then they're looking in the right direction for the next young defensive mind. No, I don't know about Jonathan Gannon. I don't think he fits the mold here. But I like Jim Leonard. I can get behind that. I don't think Al Harris is going to get that chance. And looks like Aaron Glenn hasn't been fired in New York, so he's probably going to stay. So, but if Jerry's doing the hiring, I hope it's a collaboration with him and Schottenheimer, because we do like Schottenheimer as a head coach. Pair him with another young defensive mind, and man, that could be rocket fuel, jet fuel, man.
Yeah, I agree completely. But I do think, and I'm sure Jerry said it in jest, but he had the Trump Venezuela kind of comment about, this he was asked very specifically at the press conference, who's making this hire, Jerry? And he said, well, I like Trump and the Venezuela, we're gonna run Trump's running Venezuela now, and just
It's
kind of
controversial. It's going to be
a
controversial
little
if I
bit, just a
answer
little
that
bit,
question.
just a little bit. But I think I do believe he said it in jest. Like if you listen to the
Yeah.
interview and don't take it out of context, I think my best guess would be because Schottenheimer's done such a great job for himself this year, I think it'll be a collaborative pick, which kind of again leans me more toward that Jim Leonard thing, which would be great. And I just I hope that Jerry does not get overly involved. I hope it's not him imposing somebody on Shot. I think whoever it is that gets picked, I really do hope they did it together and that Shot has an actual say in who his DC is.
It's just you just don't know,
You
Jerry.
don't.
You just don't know.
You don't.
But Jerry wants to retire with more Super Bowls than anybody, so he's got to get this right. We can't keep changing defensive coordinators every year.
Yeah.
So any other GM who has had a fifth defensive coordinator in 5 years or fourth in five, whatever it is,
Yeah.
that GM might be fired,
Mhm.
right? But we know Jerry's the owner. That's not going to happen. So I think it's interesting that all of these head coaching vacancies, and I think there's 8 now, right?
Mhm.
There's the Cardinals, Falcons, Ravens, Browns, Raiders, Dolphins, Giants, and Titans.
Yep.
Maybe the Packers will join that list, but they're all seemingly waiting on the John Harbaugh situation, right? He's kind of
100%.
gonna hold this up, I think, until it's determined through back channels and handshakes and secret meetings and where he's leaning towards going. So I don't know. I don't think we're going to see any news on this for a while, and I think there's some rules involved. I don't know the rules when it comes to talking to coaches and who you can talk to and when you can hire them, but there shouldn't slow us down too far. Um, help me out with the rules here.
It's
Like
just the
if
only the only thing that really is gonna slow this down, particularly for now, if you get the Packers, availability, and really the one that's really gonna slow this down is the Miami one. The rule that really complicates all of this is the Rooney Rule. So there's no real rule on when the vacancies get filled, but these coaches like Miami, they've gotta interview at least 2 minority candidates. And
well, they all do.
right, but what I'm saying is, like, if the top destinations for Harbaugh are the teams that are the latest, like, the Titans and the Giants
Yeah.
conceivably have had their openings for months now. Miami literally just got rid of McDaniel, and if you read the reports and believe them, they only did that because they have the handshake deal with Harbaugh. Well,
Yeah,
they
but I used to know this, but that because you couldn't interview people that were still playing in the playoffs and onto the Super Bowl. There was a certain time you had to do that. Shame on me for not looking this up before we recorded this. But can one of y'all look up the rule on hiring head coaches that are still working? Because I know they changed it more recently, which is why it's throwing me off a little bit. But there's only like an open window that you can interview these people while they're still in the playoffs. So I
it
maybe we'll check back on that, but
it's not I've got it. So, they can
okay,
interview whenever, but they cannot be hired until their team's season is over. So, if
okay.
if the top
So if
off
Jim Leonard's going to be the Cowboys defensive coordinator and they go to the Super Bowl, it can't happen until
after they're done, correct.
yeah, okay, yeah. So that's the thing is that it's all those kinds. It's not like Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss
He just
deal where,
leaves.
hey, I'm taking these guys with me.
Yeah,
What do y'all want to do? Do y'all
right.
want to coach there or come with me?
Yeah,
It's not like that. It's and that's what I'm saying is this will be a slow process. And if we have 8 or 9 teams looking for head coaches, and the problem with head coaches is there's a lot of recycled candidates. I don't know if Mike McDaniels is going to get another shot
I
at
hope
head
not.
coach, maybe in Cleveland, but he makes a great offensive coordinator, right? Raheem Morris, I don't know if he's going to get a shot. I think he's interviewing in Tennessee. I don't know if Brian Flores is getting any interviews. I haven't heard yet.
Mm,
Um, so I don't. It just depends. I know Vance Joseph, and these could be Rooney Rule interviews. I hope not. I hope
yeah,
they're legitimate because these guys have earned it. But I think this is going to be just a slow process here on this coaching carousel. with Harbaugh being the linchpin and the first shoe to drop before
Mhm.
the first domino, I guess, to fall. Any other comments on the head coaching vacancies or the defensive coordinator situation in Dallas?
Yeah, I think just that Brian Flores, I think there's an article that came out, and I was reading this earlier. It's the Viking Age, so one of the Minnesota kind of things, and the the title of it is Brian Flores' next move could devastate the Vikings more than the fans expect. And I think it's just really saying that Brian Flores was very intentional about not taking the extension. He has yet to officially take any interviews. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. He may have some
Right.
lined up and it's just coming later, but at least from what they're reporting, he doesn't have any. The reality, though, is if the dude doesn't take a head coaching gig or doesn't get interviews, he basically has his pick of which DC job does he want. And I would even venture to guess that there's a handful of teams that have current DCs that would probably move on from them if Brian Flores called and was like, "Hey, I want to come here." So I think for the Cowboys, if you want to be really aggressive with one of these kind of white whale type picks, then you've got to do that and you've got to put it out there. Right now, it seems like they're kind of,
Mhm.
and good for them. They should do this. They don't get stuck on any one guy, but they are definitely doing their due diligence this cycle with the DC.